Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. So welcome to our Saturday talk on Bhagavad Gita. We will continue on chapter 6 today, and we will start from verse number 10. Actually, these verses are a practical suggestion to all of us how to do meditation. These are the verses which give us all the possibilities to implement some of the techniques which we use for meditation, how to go into that and why it is needed. We saw in the previous few verses, actually from the beginning of this chapter, that Krishna laid down a completely transformational philosophy that you don't have to go out of this world and retire in ashrams and jungles to be yogi. You can be yogi while doing everything in this world, but doing without expectations and without the feeling that you are the doer. If you can get out of those two things, that you are not the doer and that you don't have any expectation out of it, you are doing it primarily because it is your duty, because you are discharging your functions in this world. If you take that attitude and do that, then you are a yogi. And this is a very transformational approach given by Lord Krishna. But this approach is possible only when we actually do purification of our inner self. Some purification of our inner self is needed, and that is what he is describing here from verse number 10 onwards. Because getting rid of expectations, getting rid of desires is not possible without inner purification. And that is what, let's start with verse number 10 now. मन और इंद्रियों सहित शरीर को वश में रखने वाला आशा रहित और संग्रह रहित योगी अकेला ही एकांत स्थान में स्थिर होकर आत्मा को निरंतर परमात्मा में लगाए. Now this is the first phase which he is describing here. Yogi Yujit. Yogi Yujit means the person who is not troubled by his sense organs. Sense organs are not dragging him here and there. So that is, he is able to control that. And then Satat Atmanam Rahasya Sthit, that he is completely established or completely stabilized in himself. The person is not he is not able to, or nobody is able to push him here and there. He is completely established in himself. The outside forces are not impacting him as he is becoming independent. He is not paradhin, he is swadhin. Swadhin means he wants to do what he wants to do. He is not swayed by the outside events. So this is what it says. And then he says that ekant sthan par. Now ekant sthan, what I mean is, or what he means in my view, is that you should be alone in yourself. That is, you should be established in yourself. It does not mean that you should be completely out of this world and you should leave the family and you should go in jungle. No, that is not the meaning of ekant here. Ekant means that you are with your own self, and outside world is not able to sway you here and there. That is what ekant, and it is very clear from the first part of the verse. Ekant, it is very clear that you should be with your own self. There are a lot of activities happening outside in the world. Those activities should not be able to sway you here and there. So I think this is very important, that we are not swayed by our sense organs. That is the first thing. then we are not swayed by the outside world, and we are established in our own self deeply. And then we devote ourselves to the Almighty. So this is the beginning of what you call, you know, you do meditation. This is the beginning of the meditation. So the first part of meditation is that yujit, that is to have control over senses. So you are not swayed by the senses. Then you are not swayed by the world, the events happening outside. You are solely established in your own self, and then you are, established in the Almighty at the same time. Because if you are established in yourself, it automatically means that you are established in the Almighty. So this is the verse number 10. Then verse number 11 gives the practical suggestions how we can do it. It says, शुद्ध भूमि में जिसके ऊपर कुशा, मृगशाला और वस्त्र बिछे हैं. Now, शुद्ध भूमि means we should select a place which is comparatively clean. Now, this is absolutely essential, because if the place is not clean, you cannot concentrate on your meditation. For proper meditation, you have to have clean place. Then kusha. Now, kusha grass has been described in a variety of literature in ancient India. Now, the reason being, I believe it is so. I have not, don't have practical experience of it, but that this grass is repellent against insects and, some sort of these, small species of life. And these species of life are actually not disturbing you if you are sitting on kusa grass. That is what I understand, and that is why this kusha grass was important in those times. But today we are, in very different position. We can select a place which is clean and which is quiet. We can sit inside a room which we have selected for our meditation. So we don't have to go exactly by this, description, but the sentiments of this description should be used in the today's context. Then Mrakchala and Vastra. Mrakchala was also to make you feel comfortable, and Vastra on top of it. So basically, we can select a room which is comparatively clean and which is quiet for our meditation. This is one thing. जो न ऊंचा है न नीचा है. Now this is very important. ऊंचा और नीचा, why? Because the force of gravity impacts on our spine and our movement, and therefore it is important that the place we select is not too high or not too low. That is the reason it has been described here. The gravity impacts us when we are down below in a valley. The impact on the body is different. When we are on the mountains, the impact on the body is different. So basically to select a place which is not too much impacted by the force of gravity. And then asan ko sthir karke. That is basically to keep it in a organized form. So the best way is to sit in Padmasan on a small, in a room. You can spread a nice carpet and then you can sit on it in Padmasan. That's the best position for doing, meditation. But those who are not able to sit in Padmasan, of course, they can sit on a chair. They can choose a comfortable chair where they can, do this Padmasan. But best position is to do in Padmasan sitting on the carpet. Otherwise, of course, you can do on a chair. So this is what the verse number 11. These are the practical suggestions applicable in those times. We can modify them according to the, conditions available to us today. Like when we were, in some of the places in the last few days, the places were so beautiful that you can sit down for meditation for 1 hour, 2 hours. It would give you a total peace of mind. Now, the verse number 12. उस आसन पर बैठकर चित्त और इंद्रियों की क्रियाओं को वश में करते हुए मन को एकाग्र करके अंतःकरण की शुद्धि के लिए योग का अभ्यास करें. नाउ दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. व्हाट इट सेज दैट इंद्रियों की क्रियाओं को, नाउ वी हैव टू एनालाइज आवर एक्शंस ड्यूरिंग द डे and think what are the activities of our senses which swayed us here and there, which we were not able to control ourselves because of the push given by those senses. So the sense organs, uh, their behavior should be analyzed, and how I was swayed by those desires of the sense organs, that should be analyzed during that period. That is what is most important. Antakaran ki suddhi, I think this word has been used 2 times before in the previous chapters. Antakaran ki suddhi means that what you think inside and what you do outside, there should be a consonance, there should be a sort of uh, uniformity there. There should not be discordance between the two. What you think and what you are doing, they should go in unity. That is antakaran ki suddhi. Without that, you cannot be true to yourself. You have, like, I know certain examples. I have seen some people. For example, you go to somebody's house at without talking to him or without informing him or her, and you enter the house, the person is busy with something else, and you feel, so no, this guest has come at a wrong time, but still he behaves in a very nice manner, that please come in, sit down, what can I offer you. Now that is not in unity. He feels differently. He feels that this person has come at a wrong time. So you can politely also say that this is the time when we are busy. Of course, you are most welcome to come here and sit for a little while, but we are doing this. So it is better to be genuine and honest. What you think should come out honestly, in a polite way. It need not be very aggressive, need not be in a mood of anger. The anger should never be there, but it should not be in sort of offensive language. It should be in polite language, but it should come out what you think. If there is a discordance between what you think and what you are doing, then that is not antakaran ki suddhi. Antakaran ki suddhi means there should be unity in your thinking and in your behavior. So this is very, very important. And that is possible when we sit down quietly at the end of the day or beginning of the day and meditate over our activities during the last day or the previous few days and analyze them, that which are the activities, which are the actions which I did, which were not in accordance to my thinking, which were swayed by the sense organs. Now, those two kinds of activities which were swayed, we were overtaken by the sense organs, that is one part of the activities. Secondly, the activities which were not in unity with your own self, these two kinds of activities we should actually analyze. And after doing that, that is what abhyas, yoga abhyas is. And after doing that, you try to purify your own self and establish yourself in the Almighty, because this process will automatically lead you there. You don't have to do anything more after that. If you are able to recognize your deficiencies, that is where I am wrong, the corrective action will automatically happen in the system, and your next behavior would be absolutely fine. But what happens is that some of us get used to that kind of behavior uh, in our day to day activities so often, it becomes our habit. And therefore, we don't even realize that we are, in disunity with our own self. That realization is very important. Disunity with the self is very, very important to realize, to come to Antakaran ki Suddhi. Antakaran ki Suddhi is not possible without getting rid of this, uh, you know, discrepancy between our thinking and between our action. That is one part. And the second part, as I said, we have to analyze those activities where we were swayed by our sense organs. We should not be swayed by our sense organs. That is very, very important. Then the verse number 13. Now, this is again very important verse because it gives you what position you should sit down. It tells you that your spine should be straight. Now it says, काया सिर और गले को समान और अचल धारण करके स्थिर होकर अपनी नासिका के अग्रभाग पर दृष्टि जमाकर अन्य दिशाओं को न देखता हुआ. Now here there are two things. One, we have always been practicing that our spine should be straight. So we should absolutely be, like in this format, keeping our all the, not only the spine but also our this area, neck and our face. All that should be absolutely straight in 90-degree angle if possible, but not too far from the 90-degree angle. And then the other part is very important. नासिका के अग्रभाग को देखते हुए. Now you must have seen Lord Shiva in the pose of meditation in many places. In many temples we have seen. You will find he has half eye open and half eye is closed. So he is all the time looking at this tip of our nose here. That is the pose which he is suggesting here, Lord Krishna. And I believe that this pose is the most important and most remunerative pose in terms of meditation. Now, it is not easy to do it because you are closing your eyes from the world and you are bringing your eye right on the tip of the nose. When we do our meditation, we concentrate on our breath. Now, that is similar to this, but we close our eyes completely. Here he is suggesting you don't have to close your eyes completely, you close your eyes halfway. That is close from the world, but then concentrate on the eye here. And that is the pose which is not easy to do. It requires a lot of practice, but it can be done. It is not that difficult. You have to actually close your eyes like this and bring your, attention on your tip of your nose completely and stay in that position. Now, that position one has to try. It will have to be done individually by each one of us. I think the best way is to sit in Padmasana on a carpet in a quiet place and then sit in that posture and then think on our activities of the day to, cleansing our inner self. So this position is, was used by yogis in the past very often, but these days, this position is not that easy to emulate or to practice. And that is why we all the time say that let's close our eyes. Closing of our eyes is extremely important because as soon as you open your eyes, you see this world outside and then attracts you. Many things attract you. As soon as you open your eyes, the sense organs start working very fast and then the mind works very fast. So that is why as soon as you close your eyes, the sense organs stabilize and you are not swayed by their attractions. So closing of eyes is also fine, and concentrating on our breath, that is also fine as another option. But if one can do exactly as Lord Krishna has suggested here, nothing like it. That is what I can say is perfection of meditation. That is the perfect state of meditation. Then let us go to verse number 14. ब्रह्मचारी के व्रत में स्थित, भय रहित और भली भांति शांत अंतःकरण वाला सावधान योगी मन को रोककर मुझ में चित्त वाला और मेरे परायण होकर स्थित हो गए. Now there's very important words in this word in Sanskrit. Prashantatma, that is one. Yukt, that is another one. Asit matpara. These are very important words which we have to understand. Prashantatma. Shant means to be quiet, to be, absolutely without any movement inside. But Prashant means deeply quiet. Like when you go to the depth of the ocean where water is absolutely still, that is Prashant. In fact, the name is Prashant Mahasagar. That is the deepest ocean, and when you go on the deepest part of that ocean, that is absolutely quiet. So, Prashant means the deepest part of our own self. We are connected with that, then we become absolutely quiet. And that is where we should concentrate, that we can reach that Prashant, the state of Prashant. But we can start with Shant and slowly, slowly reach to Prashant. Then Yukt. Yukt is always unity. Unity with the self and unity with the Almighty. But here he says Mat Para. Mat Para means that who are established in me. Completely established in me means in the Almighty, in Brahman. And Lord Krishna here, whenever he is using word mat means, self means in the Almighty, in the Brahman. He is talking as Brahman in that particular context. So, Machitto, everything is surrendered to the God. It also means everything is surrendered to the self. There's no contradiction between the two. That if you are surrendering everything to your own inner self, it also means that you are surrendering all those things to the Almighty, because your self is also part of the Almighty. The consciousness inside is part of the same Almighty, which is, the consciousness outside. So the inner self and the outer self, there's, like we say that once the body is dissolved, the two are the same. When the port is broken, the space inside the port and outside the port become one. Similarly, when the body is broken, the consciousness inside and the consciousness outside, they merge with each other, they become one. But in any case, they are one all the time. Like space in this, for example, this room, once the room is broken, this becomes part of the outer space. Even now it is part of the outer space, accepting these walls. So we also have these walls of the body around us. So once the body is dissolved, then we become one with the Almighty. So this is what he's saying here, that when we are concentrating on our own inner self completely, then we become one with the Almighty, because then the body is completely away. The body is not an obstruction in that case, because our concentration is inside on our consciousness. So basically it is the example of port, that the space inside the port and the space outside the port is the same, and there's no port without a space, by the way. And once the port is broken, the space becomes one. So precisely the same thing here, that we should totally dissolve ourselves into the Almighty. But before that, he says that Brahmacari ke vrat mein sthir. Now the Brahmacari word has been quietly, very much misused in our, world these days. Brahmacari doesn't mean that you have to be, unmarried, and you don't have to have, relationship with your spouse. That is not the meaning. Brahmachari is basically that you are absolutely disciplined in your conduct. Your personal conduct is absolutely disciplined. And there are all the rishis in India, if you look at them, their own personal history, they were all married and they all had children. You go into most of the rishis, you will find their family history, and they have given birth to children, including the author, of, in fact, Dhritarashtra was the son of the author of Mahabharata. So I think in though it was in a different context, but of course most of the father of writer of Mahabharata was also a great Rishi Parasar, who gave birth to Vedvyas. Now Rishi Parasar gave birth to Vedvyas, and Vedvyas gave birth to three children. Now it may be in a different context, but yes, they were not against having a family life. Family life was part and parcel of the traditions in India. That was actually disassociated by the Buddhism and Jainism to some extent when they decided to keep the family life away. Buddhism emphasized on that and Jainism emphasized on that, but Hinduism did not emphasize on that. Even Lord Krishna himself was married and he had children. So I think this word brahmachari means that you should be disciplined in your conduct, in your behavior, and that is what I understand. Uh, Everything should be, in accordance to the good behavior of human being, which has been described in Shastras or in, say, Bhagavad Gita. If we follow that kind of conduct, and if we have bahar bhitar ki suddhi, that is our unity between our thinking and our conduct, then we are following the brahmachari vrat. So brahmachari does not mean that you leave the family life and retire to jungles or ashrams. That is not necessarily brahmachari. That can also be brahmachari. I'm not denying that. If you follow that tradition honestly, yes. But while remaining in your household, you can also be brahmachari. And that is what the very beginning of this chapter says, that you don't have to retire to the jungles and to ashrams to be a yogi. You can be yogi while doing all your activities in this world without expectations and without desires. Those are the two conditions. And the third one, that without feeling that you are the doer. If we can avoid those three situations, then we are yogi even while sitting in our own households. So this is what I wanted to say on this verse, that you know yeah, I think there are one or two things more here. योगी मन को रोक कर मुझ में चित्त वाला, that is मच्चित्तो युक्त. Machitto yukt, that he is dedicating his attention to the Almighty. Now when we do our meditation, there are variety of things which we can do. We can concentrate on our breath. We can dissolve our mind, as we try to do when we do our last part of the meditation. We dissolve our mind into the heart, and we become without any mind, without any thought. There should be no thought at all. Or we put our mind in Agya Chakra and allow it to rest. So that is one way of doing it. But some people also believe, and this is what Lord Krishna is saying, that you can also dedicate yourself to the Almighty. Some people might think, take an image of the Almighty in front of them and concentrate on that. That is also a possible option. But then there is a duality there, that you have the Almighty separate than you. That separation causes duality. But that duality can become one, at a later stage. But like some people like to have the child form of Lord Krishna or child form of Rama in their mind when they are meditating. That also is a possible option. But basically, ultimately, it should merge into your own self. The mind should dissolve in your consciousness, and the thought process should stop. that is the ultimate thing, because that is where you are one with the Almighty. So you can, practice a variety of ways, but ultimately you have to reach a state where there's no duality. You are established in your own self without any thinking, without any thought process. The thought process comes to a total halt. So these are very practical suggestions he has given in these verses, how we can do our meditation in a better way. Then verse number 15, वश में किए हुए मन वाला योगी इस प्रकार आत्मा को निरंतर मुझ परमेश्वर में लगाए और मुझ में रहने वाली परमानंद की पराकाष्ठा रूप शांति को प्राप्त होवे. Now he is summarizing here that given all the things which are in the last 5 verses, from verse number 10 to 14, if you follow all that, you sit down in a quiet place. Ekant means that you are with your own self, and sense organs are not swaying you. The world outside is not swaying you. You are established in your own self, and your mind is established in the Almighty, or established in your own self with your own consciousness. Once you are able to achieve all that, then you will attain antakaran ki suddhi. Then your the self will become clean, and then you can see yourself better. Like when we have what you call the mirror is covered with, for example, dust, then you cannot see your image properly. Once the dust is cleaned, then you can see your image properly. Like when I drive, for example, the window, the glass window in the front is not clean, then you cannot see the road properly, the vehicles on the road properly. But once it is clean, then you can see them properly. Similarly, we are able to see our own activities in a correct way, in a proper way, once we are able to clean the self. And cleaning of the self is possible through these 5 methods which he has stated above. So that is why he says here, वश में किए हुए मन वाला. Now the मन वश में कब होगा? जब आपकी इंद्रियां आपको विचलित नहीं करेंगी कि मेरे को ये सुनना है, मेरे को ये कहना है, मेरे को ये देखना है, मेरे को ये खाना है. जब तक वो इंद्रियां आपको विचलित करती रहेंगी, आपके मन में और मेरे को तो भी रसगुल्ला खाना है, और आप मेडिटेशन कर रहे हैं, तो वो इंद्रिया आपको प्रोवोक कर रही है और आप मेडिटेशन करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, तो वो मेडिटेशन हो नहीं सकती. अरे मेरे को तो वो फिल्म देखनी है आज, तो आप तो उस फिल्म में जा रहे हैं, आप मेडिटेशन कैसे करेंगे? When you are not able to control your senses, the mind will not be under your control, because mind and senses, they follow each other. Either the mind takes the senses with them, or the senses take the mind with them. That we have seen in chapter 2, that either the mind follows the senses or senses follow the mind. There was one example which was given, that even when there's a boat in the river or in water somewhere, strong wind can take the boat away. Similarly, a strong sense organ can take your mind away. Mind can be completely swayed by a strong activity of your sense organ. So the sense organs have to be under check to keep the mind under check. That is very, very important. So this is what he says here, that has to be checked. And then आत्मा को परमात्मा में लगातार लगाए. Now this is important, because unless you concentrate on the Almighty or your own self, then your mind will continue to remain in the world. To distract the mind from the world, or to take the mind away from the world, you have to bring the mind either to your own self or to the Almighty. Now, these are the two options which we have to adopt. If we don't do that, any of the two, then our mind will completely, keep going back to the world. Now, it is said often that if you give a higher incentive to somebody, he will go to that. For example, somebody has a job of say 10,000 rupees per month. You offer him a job for 20,000. He will leave that 10,000. He will go to 20,000 job. Similarly, we have to convince our mind that there is a higher objective to achieve, which will give you more peace and tranquility. Then the mind will leave this world. And we have to disengage from the world slowly, slowly, one by one. The activities, disengagement means that you don't have to, uh, remain attached to the activities. You do the activities, whatever is needed to be done, do. But don't remain attached to them. That should not impact on you. If it is done properly, you will become happy. If it is not done properly, you become unhappy. No, that is the impact. That impact should be avoided. Both the happiness and unhappiness are the impact of the activities. So even the temporary happiness we seek sometimes, actually that is the sign that you are inviting unhappiness. And that is why the word Anand does not have a vilom. It is not a antonym. There is no antonym from Anand. खुशी का तो दुख, खुशी और सुखी, these are antonyms, because खुशी can lead to dukhi and dukhi can lead to खुशी. So these are antonyms, sukh and dukh, pleasure and pain. But Anand does not have that kind of. Anand is above that. It is because that is the state where you are neither experiencing pleasure, not experiencing pain. That the state of equanimity. And that is why this word does not have antonym of its own. So I think that is the state where we have to reach. परमानंद की पराकाष्ठा रूप शांति को प्राप्त होता है. That is very important. The greatest peace comes only when one is established in the Almighty. That experience is a unique experience. Once you are experiencing that, even for a little while, I think you will slowly will get attracted to that so much that you will leave all the worldly activities. But you have to taste that. To taste that, you have to practice according to the verses which have been mentioned earlier, up to from 10 to 14. If we practice in that way, slowly we will experience that Paramanand. And if we can experience it even for brief period, then slowly we will get that temptation and we will leave the world. The world will look frivolous, it would look not very attractive, and you will slowly get out of the world and your mind will be completely dedicated to the Almighty. I think that's a natural process, but you have to experience that once. Without experiencing, you cannot distract yourself from the world. And for experiencing, you have to do this sadhana. Sadhana is important. In the beginning, this sadhana looks very cumbersome, it's very difficult, but slowly it becomes your practice and you start liking it so much that you start withdrawing yourself from the world. So that is the state one has to come. This is what the verse number 15 is. Now verse number 16 is very important, very important. हे अर्जुन, यह योग न तो बहुत खाने वालों का, न बिल्कुल न खाने वालों का, न बिल्कुल बहुत सहन करने वालों का, न बिल्कुल न सोने वालों का. ये योग तो सिर्फ उन लोगों का है जो यथा योग्य कार्य करते हैं. Now this is the principle of moderation, which Buddha also explained in his philosophy. Middle path, he called it middle path. There is a incident which has been narrated in the life of Lord Buddha. He was, you know, mm, he actually was doing vrat for a very long time. He was fasting for almost 60 days. And as a result, he became extremely weak. And his body was becoming, without any energy. So one day, uh, I don't know, this realization came to him, or somebody told him. There's not very, there's no total clarity on this incident, but the fact is that somebody told him, or he realized himself, that if you have a veena, the instrument veena, and if you pull the strings too much, then the strings will break. If you leave the strings loose, then there would be no sound of music. So they should be fixed in such a way that they do not break. At the same time, there is sound of music. That was the lesson given to him. Some people say that it was given by a young lady who came to him and says कि आप इतने कमजोर क्यों हो गए, आप नहीं खाएंगे तो खत्म हो जाएंगे, आपकी पूरी तपस्या भंग हो जाएगी, क्या फायदा ऐसे करने से. Maybe that is a truth, I don't know. One has to read it, there are different sources, different versions. But the fact of life is that he used that example and propounded what we call madhyam marg, and which is called middle path in English, that you should not uh, do extremes either way, no extremes either way. And this has been very clearly described here by Lord Krishna, कि ये योग जो है वो तो आपको, you don't have to eat too much and you don't have to be fasting all the time. You don't have to sleep too much and you don't have to deprive yourself of the sleep. This has to be done in in a quantity which is reasonable, in a quantity which is acceptable. So the principle of Madhyam Marg is completely, contained in this particular slok of Bhagavad Gita. And that is the path we have to follow in our life, that we don't have to go to the extremes. And actually the sambhav which he talks about all the time, that sambhav is basically avoiding extremes, not to this extreme, not to other extreme. Sambhav means in the middle. Like when you look at these people in circus, they walk on the rope. When they are, bending little bit to the right, then they come to the left, and then right and left. They keep doing like this, and they are able to walk because they are balancing themselves in a very delicate way from the right to left, right to left. When you are going right, means you are taking energy to go to the left, and when you are going left, you are taking energy to come to the right. And once you lose that balance, then you fall. Then you are not able to walk. The life is precisely that kind of difficult walk, that we have to follow the middle path. We have to follow the sambhav. Sambhav is basically the path without extremes. And in Sanskrit, there is also another verse says that ati sarvatra varjate, that excess is always bad. We should avoid that. Some people say that when Sita was so beautiful that she was, kidnapped by Ravan, and that was also the disadvantage of extreme beauty. So, those are just an example to explain whether it is true or not. I don't want to go into the debate of that. The fact is that anything in excess is not good. And this is the principle which has been explained by Lord Krishna in this particular verse, that we have to follow a life which is balanced life, a life where we are not going any extremes anywhere in our personal conduct. I think that is very important. We observe our personal conduct, whether it is eating, whether it is sleeping. These are the only examples, but that example should go all over the life. Whether you are talking to some people, you are showing too much love or too much hatred, both are not good. Neither too much love, nor too much hatred, not too much talking, and not too much not talking at all. There are all types of extremes which we have to avoid. We have to find a balance in our life, and then we can attain yoga in a proper way. So these are some of the practical suggestions which have been given by Lord Krishna in these verses. Now, in verse number 17, he again, actually 17 and 18, he summarizes this again. दुखों का नाश करने वाला योग तो यथा योग्य आहार विहार करने वालों का, कर्मों में यथा योग्य चेष्टा करने वालों का, और यथा योग्य सोने और जागने वालों का. Now he says that even the activities, कर्म भी आपको, ये नहीं कि those who are abstaining from the कर्म they are good. No, he says that you have to do in moderation all the karmas as well. And karmas you should do without expectation and without desires. That is very important. So he has clarified here in these two verses the essence of the middle path, which was, which became the fundamental teaching of Lord Buddha later on. So Lord Buddha came much after Bhagavad Gita, but that became the fundamental teaching of Lord Buddha. And we have seen earlier in the previous chapter and also in this chapter, he has used word nirvan, Brahma nirvan and nirvan in many occasions. So I think in certain ways, the teachings of Buddha expand on these concepts of Bhagavad Gita in practical terms. And the method of meditation which has been given here actually has been taken by the monastic life of Buddhism in a practical way. They go into monasteries and they follow this kind of method and they purify themselves and become yogi. So in certain ways you can say that some of the teachings of Buddha are contained in these chapters, these two chapters, chapter number 5 and 6. Now verse number 18, अत्यंत वश में किया हुआ चित्त जिस काल में परमात्मा में ही भली भांति स्थिर हो जाता है, उस काल में संपूर्ण भोगों से स्पृहा रहित पुरुष योग युक्त हो जाता है, ऐसा कहा जाता है. स्पृहा रहित, इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट वर्ड हियर. निस्पृह, that is the Sanskrit word, nisprah. We have spurs. This word comes from spurs, that the outside activities का जब आपके साथ स्पर्श होता है या इंद्रियों का बाहर के ऑब्जेक्ट से स्पर्श होता है, then all these things happen. So spraha rahit means that your sense organs are not getting impacted by the objects of consumption outside. The objects of consumption outside are not impacting on your sense organs. You want to consume, but you want to consume. You are not attracted by what is available outside. Available outside may be variety of things, but you choose what you want. That is what is spraha rahit, that you are not impacted by that. Similarly, what others are telling you, they are abusing you or they are praising you or they are hating you or they are loving you, now that is not impacting on you. Because I gave that example of the old man and his grandchild walking from one place to another in the desert. So you will always find people praising you or abusing you or hating you or loving you. This is inevitable in this world. You will always find that. But you should not be carried away by that. You should not be swayed by that. That should not impact on you. That spraha rahit is possible only when you are completely detached from the impact of consumption outside in the world or impact of the influence outside in the world. What people are saying and what people are talking about you, that should not impact on you. You are not paradhin. Paradhin means that what others say is impacting on you, that is paradhin, or what others do is impacting on you, or what you know things are available for consumption, they are impacting on you. So those should not be impacted. You should decide what you want to do. That is why in the verse number 10, he has also said, there's a word which I missed explaining, that is sangraha rahit, that we don't have to accumulate. In Jainism, there is what we call, there's a big principle that you should not accumulate things which are not needed for your essential requirements. And that has been expanded in a great way in Jainism. But that has also been contained here, that we don't have to accumulate things which are not essential for our, living. We have this habit, all of us have this habit. I have also done that. We keep accumulating things. Oh, I like this, let me take it. Whatever is not needed, whatever is not essential, we don't have to accumulate. So this is possible only when we become spraharahit. When the we have seen some of these words in the past, that how the outside uh, objects impact on our sense organs. Somebody will write, oh, it's a beautiful film, we should see. Immediately, oh, why not I see it? You should see what you want to see. You should not be impacted by that. Because the life itself is a film. Why do you have to go there to see a film? Similarly, somebody say, oh, this is a new, instrument which has come up and we should buy it. New cell phone number, whatever, model 10, 11, whatever has come. Or we should immediately, oh, I should have that because I want to show to the world that I have the latest one. Now that is not spraharahit. That you are already swayed by the things outside. Oh, there's a new, car model which has come up. I should buy that car immediately. I should show to the world. Now that kind of thing is not, desirable. This is actually means that you are still controlled by outside. You are controlled by the people and by the objects outside. So you are not spraharahit. So you cannot become yog yukt unless you get out of that tendency. So he says that अत्यंत बस में किया हुआ चित्त, चित्त बस में कब होगा? जब भी होगा जब आपको बाहर के ऑब्जेक्ट्स, बाहर की वस्तुएं, बाहर के व्यक्ति आपके ऊपर असर नहीं करेंगे, आपको इधर से उधर स्वे नहीं करेंगे, कि आप विचलित नहीं होंगे उधर से इधर, तभी आप योग युक्त हो सकते हैं. So this is the essence here. This word spraharahit, nisprah, and yog yukt, that is yukt, the word is yukt here. Ityuchatte tada, then you are called that you are one with the Almighty. Then you are one with the Almighty. Once you are, it's not a very difficult process. Not getting swayed by the outside activities, or following your own inner self, what you feel is right thing to do. I think that should decide your life. That this is what I consider right, according to my judgment, according to my thought process, this is the best thing to do, and I do that. Whatever others are doing, others are thinking, others are saying is not important. Once you have attained that, then it is fine. But that what is right, that feeling of right will come only when you have the antakaran ki suddhi, when your inner self is clean. Otherwise, you might think wrong is right. That is possible. And we do that very often. That is the mistake we always do. We consider something, oh, this is right in my view. But we think that because our thinking process is not pure. Our thinking process is already vitiated because the inner self is not clean. Once that cleanliness comes, then only the thinking process can be right. And once that process is right, then you do according to that process, not by outside. So there are two things here. Antakaran ki suddhi is extremely important, because without cleaning the self, you cannot take a correct decision inside yourself. And once you take that correct decision, you should implement that decision irrespective of what others feel and others do. That is what Krishna is saying, and that is what Arjuna has to understand. Because right now Arjuna's whole thinking is that how can he fight a war against Bhishma and against Dronacharya and against own family members? How can he kill them? That is his dilemma. So he is telling that you purify yourself, and what is right thing for you to do, that you should do that. And for a Kshatriya, the right thing to do is to fight a war which is for the good of the others. धर्म युक्त युद्ध से बढ़कर क्षत्रिय के लिए और कोई कर्तव्य नहीं है. That is what he had said earlier also, and that is what he is saying here, that realization will come only when you have bahar bhitar ki suddhi, when you have cleaned yourself completely from inside and outside. So I think we will stop here today. And this is a very practical chapter for our practice of meditation, for our own self-purification. Self-purification, we have to take 4 steps. First step is to choose a right place to meditate. And the place should be quiet, it should be clean, and it should not be too high, too low, so that our gravity is not impacting on you. So you should choose a right place and keep it clean, and use the same place for meditation all the time, because there's extra energy which starts accumulating in that place when you meditate, and your thought process becomes pure. So that is one element we have to do. We have to choose a place. Secondly, we have to sit properly, that is straight. Spine should be absolutely straight, our 90-degree angle, so that the flow of energy is absolutely right in the body. It is not deviating here and there. That is the second part, which is extremely important in meditation. Thirdly, we should contemplate on our own activities which we have done. Say, if we are meditating this morning, what we did yesterday or day before, meditate on those little bit. Where did I do wrong? What was the mistake I did? And once you start meditating your own self, then you will realize the deficiencies you have. And then the corrective process will start on its own. It will not require any further action. The corrective process will start. And once that process starts, then slowly, your mind will become one with yourself. You will become that ekant. And that ekant means also you will be one with the Almighty, because if you are one with your own self, there is no discrepancy between your thinking and your conduct. Then obviously you will be one with the Almighty, and then you will call yukt, yog yukt, and you will not be swayed by the activities outside. So these are the important points which have been mentioned here. So we should start with selecting a right place and sitting down there, meditating on our own activities, and analyzing those activities which we did because we were swayed by outside impact, either by the sense organs or by the objects outside, and we then slowly eliminate those process of impact from outside. Once we are able to do that, then we will be established in ourselves, and we will be one with the Almighty, and whatever we do will have that purity. That purity will come. A good person who is pure from inside, he cannot do wrong. It is not possible, because for him the whole world is one. It's all pervaded by the Almighty. Isa vashyam idam sarvam. That परमात्मा का निवास सब जगह है. जो मैं हूँ वही rest of the world है. That feeling comes only when you have purity of thinking inside. and then you cannot do wrong, and your actions will be guided by that mission, that whole world is one, and that mission will lead you to what we call prashant, that is the deep uh, sense of peace, deep sense of quietness, deep sense of oneness with yourself. So I think we will stop here at verse number 18 today. And because the next example is very beautiful example in verse number 19, but we'll do that later on. So I will stop here. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them. And I think let us start practicing some of these based on some of these suggestions individually in our own respective homes, so that we can, attain higher level of what you call meditation and self elevation. Thank you.